Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, and alongside of me tonight, or across here, is Stuart Hack, and our special guest is John Garrett. Stuart, John, welcome to the big show. Hello.
Hey. Thanks so much, man. I'm excited to be here. This is awesome.
No, we're glad to have you, and I'll tell you what, it's always good to bring on some new people, and my goodness, you're welcome to our Hall of Fame family here. Where fun is a requirement and me going crazy is a norm. So with that said, Stuart, why don't you welcome our guest, John Garrett?
Sure, John Garrett. Where do we start? Author?
From the beginning.
CPA? I mean, it's like a quadruple threat. I'm sure I missed some there. But
right.
I've been wanting you to come on with me for some time now, and I'm glad we were able to work this out. Obviously you went to Notre Dame, and we'll talk about your role in the football program there in a minute, but you went for accounting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I started engineering, but D in physics means that business is probably for me. Yeah. So I graduated with an accounting degree. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you worked for Price Waterhouse, one of the big...
PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big four. I was in a rotational program and then ended up in internal audit, merger acquisition type stuff. So it was pretty awesome. Then was later on the largest financial services client that PwC had for about a year and a half long project before I ended up leaving Big Four. So yeah, it was great. I loved it.
And at what point did you just wake up one morning and say, because I'm wondering, I've been dealing with this myself, but I stayed with it a little bit longer. At what point did you wake up and say, you know what, I'm out of here?
It's really hard to tell the story only because I don't recommend people do it. It's hard. It's hard out here when you're on your own, when you have your own business, but you're also the product. So being a full-time comedian, you're the CEO, you're the secretary, you're marketing, you're product development, you're the writer, but you're also the performer and you're the product. And so
you're doing this while you were still working.
Yeah. So I did it for many years at night on the side. And by many, I mean about 5. And then, one day we had a new manager that came in from the outside, and he and I did not really get along very well. And so I was going to leave anyway. And so I had the good fortune of being on some, like the Bob and Tom morning show, and my comedy album was on Sirius and Pandora, and had opened for Louis Anderson in Atlantic City and done some cool things. And so I thought, well, if I'm leaving, I might as well just give this a go and see what happens. I had a phone call with Wayne Cotter, who was an old IBM guy, left to host A&E's Evening at the Improv eventually, and a couple of other comedians that have pretty much made it big time. And and they're like, give it a shot, give yourself 6 months, and then you can go back and get a job. And so it just happened it was kind of a perfect storm, I guess, where my comedy career was really going up, and then the accounting career at the same time was, starting to hit some rough patches, just because of, I was going to have to find a new job anyway. And so then you just start running, and then you run as fast as you can and as hard as you can and as long as you can to just outrun it. And and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, but that's rare. And so I don't want to be the guy that tells people, quit your job and go follow your dreams, because 99 out of 100 are not going to make it. And then I'm the guy that you're going to find to punch me in the face and be like, hey, jerk, it didn't work and it's all my fault now. And then I feel bad. So instead it's, hey, don't do it. Keep it as a hobby. Keep it as a side thing. Because let's face it, you're probably not good enough to make a living at it. And that's totally okay, because you're not supposed to be. That's why it's a hobby, And so it was just kind of a perfect storm in the corporate world. And then comedy was taking off, and then you just got to hustle. You just got to hustle 24/7, really.
Hey, did you ever have a chance to go to Chicago and the Second City? I know that the Second City and comedy are really big. I ought to know. I'm from the Midwest, and I used to go to Chicago quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So Second City's a little bit different. That's more like Saturday Night Live. I did more stand-up. So in Chicago it was Zanies Comedy Club right downtown. And then there's another one out in St. Charles. So yeah, I did those clubs. Absolutely. I've been to Second City as an audience person, and it's amazing. They're so funny, but that's a little bit different. That's more sketch. So that's like Saturday Night Live, where it's a written scene that people are acting out. What I do is just me and a microphone on stage telling jokes. So that's how it's a little bit different.
I tell people, if you've ever been to Chicago, if you don't go to Second City, shame on you, because it's certainly a place that I used to go there a lot when the Lions took on the Bears. And I always loved making that Chicago trip. And I always said, you know what? I'm going to the Second City. And I used to go there a lot of times. It was just an unbelievable place to go.
Oh, yeah. No, they're so talented there and so funny. Yeah. And then, get yourself some deep dish. And then have a heart attack on the way home, but who cares? It's totally worth it.
I'm with you. I've had a bunch of those Chicago deep dish pizzas in the past. And if you're on a diet, you ain't gonna find it eating that stuff.
No, not in Chicago. That's for sure. Between that and the pizzas and the beefs and all that, forget it. Yeah. So but that's how I ended up doing comedy full time, and then had the good fortune of. Yeah, I mean, opening for Louis Anderson in Atlantic City, hanging out with Jay Leno, met Seinfeld, and then living in New York City, was just very cool. You see Chris Rock and Seinfeld and Gaffigan and, Louis C.K. and, all these comedians that are, and then buddies of mine, like Ryan Hamilton, who's got a Netflix special out now, and Tommy Johnigan, who won Last Comic Standing, and, people like that, you're friends with and you hang out with, and, you just make each other better. And it's a crazy world though, man. And that comedy, the behind the scenes stuff, it's pretty wild. It's probably not very much different than doing like minor league, like a ball in minor league baseball, like, like just where you're just like riding buses and sleeping in your car and, just working for peanuts and just hoping to make it big.
Yeah. Chris Rock, I've always admired his work. I really do.
Oh yeah, no, he's great. And what was really cool too is you could see these people come in and they're working on new material. So, you get to see it not on the special that's on TV. It's, here's some stuff I just wrote today. I'm going to come to the audience and work it out and let's see what happens. And sometimes they miss wildly and you're like, what the hell were you thinking? But most of the time when they miss, they just miss by a little bit because they've done it for so long. So they kind of have a pulse on it. But yeah, I mean, it's always working on your craft, always pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, always, just getting better for sure.
If you had to look at comedy capitals, and I use that very loosely. What would you say would be a comedy capital for you?
So New York City is the capital of stand-up comedy. New York City for stand-up, Chicago for the sketch and improv sort of, and then LA is for like actors. Characters and things like that. So, but as far as the capital of stand-up comedy, it's New York City. Everybody knows it. Even if someone's trying to lie right now, they know it. It's New York. I mean, it's where the best of the best are.
Have you watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And part of it, I was kind of like, this is a little frustrating because all she does is get drunk and go rant, and then now she's a superstar, and it's like that is not at all even close. So it was good to see later on in the season, spoiler alert, where she starts to stumble a little bit. It's right, exactly, and where reality starts to set in. But it is pretty cool to see, with Lenny Bruce and all those old school rooms and the Catch a Rising Star and the original improv and just those original comedy history. I'm a huge nerd on that stuff. So so it is fun to see, but it's definitely, a fictional portrayal of, what it's like. Because if you watched, I guess Seinfeld has a documentary called Comedian, and it came out probably 10 or 15 years ago now. That's the most accurate depiction of what it's like to be a comedian. Orny Adams was relatively unknown at the time. And so Seinfeld kind of took him along to these shows. Seinfeld was rewriting new material, and then Orny was unknown. And they're at like McGuire's or no, it was out on Long Island. I forget the name of the club right now at the top of my head. I'm blanking, but they were there, and it was Governor's. That's what it was. It was Governor's Comedy Club, and Jerry Seinfeld is on stage, and a woman is heckling him. And he's like, how famous do you have to be to not get heckled? Like, what is going on? And that is not part of comedy, everybody. Like, if you go to a show, shut your mouth, like laugh, like Jimmy Brogan, who was the head writer for Leno for 10 years and also a Notre Dame alum, a buddy of mine, he's like, you don't go to the ballet and trip the ballerina. Like, why do you go to a comedy show and then try and interrupt the show? You're not part of it. Like, people came to hear what the comedian wants to say, not hear them like bomb on you. Like, I mean, just whatever you have to say is not funny. Just trust me. Like, and you're gonna lose because the person on stage is a professional and they have a microphone and the bouncers. So worst case scenario, even if you're funnier, you're kicked out. So just don't do it. Like, do not do it. Like, it's just, it's so frustrating to me.
I better stay away from those places then. Although I managed well over to Second City, I didn't mind taking a break and let them do their job. I was paying good money for those shows. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. No one interrupts Second City. It's the same thing,
way.
And it's just like, oh well, because it's a comedian that's right there in front of you, and it's not a pre-written whatever. It's really frustrating to me. It's very, I don't know. It's just insulting, I think, to the performer.
When you pay good money at the Second City, then I don't need duct tape to keep me quiet, but I certainly know how to keep quiet. Know that they got my credit card.
Exactly. Either laugh or don't laugh. That's your options. Period. Like, that's it.
Back then, I used cash though more often. Go ahead, Stuart.
There you go. Yeah, it's harder to track, right, Stuart?
Yeah, right.
So you actually, you're a big college football guy. You went to Notre Dame, and what was your role on the Notre Dame football team?
Yeah, well, I was in the marching band when I was a student. So I was part of Saturdays. I was on the field. I was on NBC several times. Actually, it was really funny because every time we'd score a touchdown, we'd go to play the victory march. And oftentimes they're, going to commercial. And so I would be talking to the person next to me, holding my trombone, just doing the motion, but we would be talking about the touchdown that just happened. Like, my face isn't even on the mouthpiece. And so like my parents would be like, hey, we noticed you weren't playing on the last game. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, NBC just zooms in right on you, like just moving your trombone and not like, I was like, well, whatever. It was a really good touchdown. I thought it was amazing.
When you were there, what was the most thrilling game that you
Yeah, so we beat USC. Keyshawn Johnson was number 1 in the country. They were on the cover of Sports Illustrated that year, and they came in October, and we beat them. And that was a pretty huge game. And then we also played in the Orange Bowl my sophomore year against Florida State, and that was pretty awesome. And it was in Miami, of course, being the Orange Bowl. And man, I tell you what. If you want to go somewhere where everybody hates you, you go to Miami against Florida State. Like, wow. I mean, we were in the Orange Bowl parade marching through Miami as the Notre Dame Marching Band, and I think everybody hated us. It was amazing. It was so amazing. There were kids throwing those little snap pops, those little things that you throw on the ground and then they pop, throwing those at us. And it was hilarious. Like, it was almost like it's one of those things. If like one person flicks you off, like you're kind of angry, but when 1,000 people flick you off, you're actually like you're like, this is heaven. Like, this is as good as it gets. Right. Everybody hates us. Like, I mean, it was just hilarious.
Well, the game you're referring to is a 1996 game that I was there, and I remember that you're talking about Bobby Bowden against Lou Holtz. If you're a media guy, that's a dream. And yours truly here forgot that Notre Dame was an independent for football, but they were in the Big East. But Lou Holtz, as classy as he is, had no problem with it. He was really, really good. And Bobby Bowden, you can't ask for 2 better people than to liven it up with the media than with those guys. And another thing you also have to understand, what you do, is being in Miami is one thing. The Miami Hurricanes hated your guts and the Irish.
Oh, yeah.
So that only added to the feisty hatefulness.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you got Hurricanes fans and Florida State Seminoles fans united for the first time ever. I mean, like, it was like they were just finally on the same side. Like, the enemy of you is my enemy too, and it was amazing. And what a great game. And that was in the old Orange Bowl
Right.
stadium. And man, it was great. And it was really close. I feel like it was like 31-26 or something like that. Yeah, it was a close game. Work Dunn was a running back for Florida State, I remember. And then, in pregame, we were down there to do our pregame as part of the band. And Randy Moss was on the team for Florida State. He couldn't play that year because he had a little legal trouble his freshman year. But so I was 4 feet away from Randy Moss. And he's a unique looking individual. I'll say that much. But man, he was such a great player. And so it was cool. It was a cool experience just being part of the band and being able to, my junior year, we played Navy in Dublin, Ireland. That was pretty awesome to go to that. And actually that's the picture right here is me and Coach Holtz on the flight back. So it was the football team, the upperclassmen that are in the band that went, the half the band, and then some big donors were all on one plane from Chicago O'Hare to Dublin. And it was just super cool to see Coach Holtz playing euchre on the floor in O'Hare Airport with a couple of the players, and then flying over. And then before we flew home, I asked Coach for the picture, and then was able to get it signed by him before he had left because that was his last year.
Yeah, did you ever play the Michigan Wolverines while you were there?
Yeah, that was my senior year at Michigan. In the big house. That was pretty neat.
Oh, you played in the big. What was it like to be in the big house?
It's not as intimidating. I mean, in the band, we were at Ohio State. That stadium was a lot more intimidating because it's got upper levels. It's decked. They're stacked on top of each other, the horseshoe. But the big house, it's 100,000 people, but it's so spread out because it's just one layer. It's not as intimidating as what you would think. And then went to a game at LSU. That was pretty awesome. They drink a lot. And I think I don't know if you can get contact drunk, but I'm pretty positive that happened. It was a night game, and they were like number 12 or 13 in the country, and we went down there and beat them. And and then they do pass outs for if you leave at halftime, go drink more at your car, and then you can get back in. Right. And I was like, these people are going to die. Like, do not give them more alcohol. Like, this is crazy. And it was wild. But I just love college football. Just the the pomp and circumstance and the band and the fans and the traditions and, the alums and it's deep rooted, for these people, you paid a lot of money to go there. You spent 4 years plus of your life being there, and it's a part of you.
Yeah, but you can remember, awesome. If you're in the state of Louisiana, I've had my fair share of hangovers right up I-10 over in New Orleans and the Ted O'Brien Hurricanes. I've never ever gone to New Orleans and not really gotten slammed before.
No, exactly. And actually, when we went to that game, we went to New Orleans the night before, and then it came up. So
Yeah, I covered Lions games over at the Superdome. I also at the 1982 Final Four at the Superdome. And I tell you what, Pat O'Brien's in New Orleans. If you haven't been there, you got to go there. There's no place like a hangover than over at Pat O'Brien's. And Pat O'Brien, I know you're probably going to get some plugs here. Who cares? John's the reason you're getting
Hurricanes.
Talking about LSU.
Yeah, and the hand grenades. And then some beignets. And no, it's so good. But
why do you think anything would be called Bourbon Street? Because you're in New Orleans.
It's more like rum.
Bourbon Street. You're naming a street after alcohol, but only in New Orleans, Bourbon Street. Of course, I wouldn't have known that half the times I walked out of there plowed anyways. But that what can I tell you? Whether this is a family show or not, when you go to New Orleans, you see good football and you get plowed. All right, Stuart, continue. Didn't mean to take you off your game.
Nope.
No, it's all good.
You got to know Coach Holtz while you were there. How did that come about, and what was he like?
Yeah, so what was really cool to me is, when you're the head football coach at Notre Dame, you're pretty high up there in the pecking order. And so you don't have to do really whatever you don't want to do. And so what was really cool to me is that every year, once or twice, he would come over in his golf cart after practice, and the band was out there practicing, and he would drive his golf cart over and he would address the band. And he would say, hey, we're out here practicing just like you are. We're out there on Saturdays just like you are. You're just as much a part of this Notre Dame experience as the football team is. And when we're out there and we're getting tired and we hear you guys break out the victory march, that gives us an extra juice and gives us a boost. And we hear you and we appreciate that. And I thought that was really cool, for him to just come over for 2, 3, 4 minutes, address us and just, hey, you're a part of this too, and keep it up. And, and he's a huge fan of the Notre Dame Marching Band, especially. And that just meant a lot to me to see, when you're a leader, and I think it carries over to corporate or really any job, is when you're a leader and you take 2 minutes, to you is nothing, but to those people, that's everything. I remember that, and vividly. And it was just really cool. Or like on our way back from that trip in Dublin, and hey, coach, can I get a picture? And he's like, absolutely. And yeah. And so last year I had the good fortune actually in New Orleans. I was speaking at a conference for a software company, and I was the close of the first night and he was the opening of the next morning. And it was really funny because I do a bit about how extracurricular activities and these outside of work passions are really important. So put them on your resume, even if it's at the bottom. And so mine was Big Brothers Big Sisters and professional stand-up comedian. But above that was education, University of Notre Dame. And in the accounting world, it's a top 5 accounting program every year. And I would say, well, is it significantly better than everyone else's accounting degree? No, unless you went to USC or Michigan, then damn straight it is. And right. This company was headquartered in Michigan. And so everyone's like, ooh. So Lou comes out the next morning and he's like, hey, I'm celebrating the 61st anniversary of my 21st birthday. I made it simple math so people from Michigan wouldn't know how old I am. And I was like, yes, like that's awesome. And so anyway, so afterwards, they did a little private meet and greet for their big donors. And so I was able to go there, and there were about 20 of us in there. So everyone was asking him questions, hey, Lou this, Lou that. And so at the end, I just waited in the back. And then Lou went down to pick up his, Coach Holtz went down to pick up his, satchel. And so I was like, hey, Coach Holtz. And he immediately like attention and like eyeballs. Right. And because no one called him Coach Holtz that whole time. And so I showed him the picture on my phone that I had. And I said, we've actually met before. And he's like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. And I said, I was in the band. He's like, I love the band. And so he gave me his card and he said, if you ever need help with anything, reach out. And he's one of those guys that if you don't, I found out now, but if he offers and you don't take him up on it, it's kind of insulting, which is cool that there are people out there that have made it and they want to help others, and so because I'm from the Midwest, I sat on it for like 2 or 3 months and didn't do anything. And then I realized I have this book coming out and it would be an honor for him to write the foreword. And so, yeah, Stuart's got it right there. What's your end? And unlock the person within the professional. And so I emailed, and the next day his assistant wrote back and said, Lou would love to, please send what you got. So I sent him, and then about a week later got the forward. And then I was like, well, now I have to finish the book. Like now I have to, because it was about 95% done. But I was like, well, if the universe has handed me Lou Holtz as a forward, I'm pretty sure I need to not ruin this. So,
if I recall correctly, Lou Holtz decided to leave Notre Dame because he did not want to break the all-time wins record, if I understood.
Well, there were a couple of factors there. I believe also, Randy Moss was recruited to go there and then got into a little bit of trouble. And then admissions was like, yeah, we can't have this here. And so, and so he was recruiting these, NFL talent kids. And then the university was starting to tighten. The academic standards at Notre Dame are already higher than the NCAA's, but those can be fluctuated, sometimes, like a kid like Chris Zorich and Tony Rice, they came in on a program that allowed, they were still above the NCAA standards, just not quite to Notre Dame standards. Right. But then Notre Dame, they do some plus and minus there, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so then they just started tightening that up, and Lou's like, this is a combination of a lot of things. But yeah, it's hard. It's a hard place to coach. You have all the alums that are demanding so much of you. I mean, Lou used to joke about even if we went 12-0, everyone would complain that we didn't win by 50 every game, which is just stupid. And so it's just hard. It's a hard place to coach because the kids are in school. They're in class. Trust me, they were in class more than I was. I mean, even like Alan Rossum, who went on to be a kick returner in the pros, he was in my accounting class my sophomore year. And they had a game at Washington, so they left on Thursday night. He plays the game at Washington, has like an interception return for a touchdown and then a kickoff return for a touchdown, and then shows up on Monday morning and does a presentation at 10 a.m. in our accounting class. And I'm like, how the hell did you just do this? I don't even know. Like, this is crazy. And so it is a hard place. But that's what makes me proud of the university is doing things the right way. You're a student athlete. It's not, you're not a football factory because 2% are going to go on to the pros, and then there's everybody else. And what are you going to do for the rest of your life? And even then, if you go pro, your average career is less than 3 years.
Right.
So, actually have some legs under you and know what you're going to do with your life.
Well, everybody knows about the stigma with Newt Rockney. Of course, everybody loves that movie, Rudy. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then that walk down the tunnel when you're there.
Oh, it's amazing.
I've never done that. I've never been to Notre Dame. It is a bucket list item. Since I like to drive, I'm a road warrior. I'll get there. It just depends on how we get there, when we get there. If it's a matter of when, what COVID or not COVID, I'm still going in my vehicle. I'm going to get to South Bend whenever that may be. But being from the Midwest, like we are, to me, you have to appreciate Notre Dame. They play Michigan State a lot, Michigan. But I know that there's a big mystique about Notre Dame and that the academic standards are really, really high. But with all due respect, Notre Dame's tradition goes unmatched. It really does. They've had a lot of tremendous coaches. You've had Ara Parsegian there for a while, who went on to do some pretty good things. And we're not going to get into a coaching clinic tonight. But some of the people that have gone on,
Frank Leahy
made a good name for himself, like going to Wisconsin and building a dynasty over there, or I should say a legacy there.
Yeah, Barry Alvarez. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what's unfortunate this year is, I mean, Notre Dame had, since we are not in a conference, we play everybody, and so it was, at USC, it was Stanford at home, it was going to be Wisconsin in Lambeau Field, which is just incredibly awesome, and so, it's almost, like Notre Dame's like, well, I mean, it's like in the old days, when Grantland Rice wrote the Four Horsemen article, it was playing Army in Yankee Stadium, I mean, just the coolest of cool, I mean, it's just, it's really neat. So yeah, it's fun to be a part of that. And then now writing their football award shows, 2 of which have been nominated for an Emmy, which is pretty neat. So the first year was Hannah Storm and Dan Hicks hosting. And then a couple of years after that was Jerome Bettis, and then Aaron Taylor. And then last year was Ryan Harris. So all alums. Dan and Hannah are married. Hannah's an alum. And but yeah, it was just so fun to just hang out with those people for a day and make them funny, which is some work, to be honest. I mean, it's hard enough to write stuff for yourself, but then the show is almost like the ESPYs. It's pretty awesome, in a theater, about 900 people on campus, and just give the students, the players, a chance to celebrate and have some fun. So,
I would like to have asked Lou Holtz, hey, well, forget about the Big East. What about the ACC? I'll bet I would have gotten a whole different answer this time.
Right? Well, those were the days when we played like Georgia Tech, and they were really good back then too. And I mean, of course, Florida State, Miami was still Big East then, I think. And it was it's a shame, because a lot of those, that Big East with Boston College and Miami, those games were great too. But I just grew up watching college football, and my dad was Air Force, so we moved all the time. And so, college football was kind of unanimous. And then those teams that were kind of transcended boundaries, kind of like the Notre Dame or even Penn State back in the day, what was awesome too is living on the East Coast, going to Army Navy game.
Right.
What a cool experience, and just no one even cared what the score was. I mean, everything about it was just awesome.
Talk a little Notre Dame football, then I want to get detailed into your book.
Okay, sure.
Notre Dame pounded USF 52-0. I had to watch that. I did. I thought
I'm
USF
sorry, man.
show up. No big deal. Made the reference. Meanwhile, they're postponing their game against Wake Forest this weekend.
Right.
I told you that I met Lou Holtz at the Orange Bowl. What a great time. And now the USF versus FAU game actually just got postponed or canceled because of what transpired up there with COVID-19. So I haven't heard anything about a makeup. I was prepared to cover it this weekend. So the Fighting Irish is making sure there's no fighting.
They're like, you guys can score 0 again this Saturday, but at least you didn't play. Yeah. So no, but it's crazy because they were locked down and doing everything right and all that. And then all of a sudden, I guess they have 7 positives. Right. And so, because of the ACC protocol, it was all right. Well, we need to postpone because now I think it's like 11 players are out. Right. So because you have to sit for 2 weeks, I guess, or 10 days. And so, I'm not sure what to think of all of it. To be honest, like some of earlier when the coaches were emotional about the health of the players. And I'm like, you've put in a kid who's had a concussion for sure and probably needed surgery. So don't tell me about the health of the kids over the money. That's crazy. And so I don't know. I guess it keeps it from spreading to the support staff and the people that are also in the building. But these kids are super athletes and they're fine. So,
I had a gut feeling though that USF was probably going to go ahead and spank FAU after the beating that they took.
I hope so.
You don't want to hear that. So I don't know how many Owls fans are going to listen to it. I don't care. I still use heart. Even though I have to admit though, I've been around FAU for the better part of 13 years. So this game go about, and I've been to some USF FAU games, my heart is very strong when it comes to these things. I've seen him.
That's Lane Kiffin, right?
And football, but anyways,
FAU is Lane Kiffin. Is that right?
No, he went on to Mississippi. We got Willie Taggart now, so.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. Because I was going to say, if it's Lane Kiffin, you guys can beat him by 200. That'd be great.
Yeah, he would. Yeah,
there was nothing greater than USC just leaving him on the tarmac after coming back after a game. Oh man, that guy! I've never seen anybody fail up more than Lane Kiffin. Really? Does he just continue to trip and fall upwards? And it's how is this possible?
Yeah, well, you know what? He's done all right. He actually left with a winning record with FAU, and he always finds a way to make a lot of money.
Give him time. Give him time. Maybe it's just his USC affiliation that makes me not like him. But yeah. But yeah. So sorry about that, man. I feel bad because I
was looking forward to that football game, but anyway.
Right, I know. Yeah.
Let's talk about your book. I think that's the one thing that Stuart and I really want to get to know about.
Okay.
So what made you decide to write this book?
Well, I speak at a lot of conferences, a lot of corporate events, do a lot of consulting with companies and making their cultures better. And people started asking, hey, do you have a book? Or people think that when you speak at a conference, people would come up to me and, well, where'd you get this "what's your and" idea? Well, it's mine. And so a lot of people in the corporate world, they borrow ideas. So they'll read 5 books like mine and then go up and give a book report basically. And I wanted to make sure that people knew, no, this is my philosophy. This is my idea. This is what I, basically put your stake in the ground. But also too, it goes into a little more depth to people that haven't heard me speak or haven't heard of me or don't know or are struggling with, hey, our corporate culture I thought was great. Then we started working remotely and it's weird. And we don't really have connections with each other. We don't have connections with clients. So that's where the book comes in where, maybe if you haven't heard me speak, you can read the book and at least get an idea or change your thinking that way. And so it just helps to spread the message farther and faster.
Now, what's your audience? Initially started as a podcast.
Yeah. And that's what I had you on, actually, talking about doing comedy and being a tax accountant. And that was awesome. And then, and so originally it was called the Green Apple Podcast. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, transitioned more to What's Your And, because that's what I was speaking on. And it just makes all one brand. But what's your and? You're an accountant and something else. You're a lawyer and something else. You're, an architect, a banker, an insurance. It's mostly white collar nerds, but it applies to teachers and really everyone. You have a job, but you have other dimensions to who you are. And for so many of us, professionalism tells us that we're not supposed to have these other things, and we're not supposed to talk about them. We're not supposed to share them. And it's the opposite. I mean, when I fly, used to fly obviously a ton, and it's starting to pick up again now, and when people are like, hey, what do you do? And if I say, oh, I'm a comedian and a speaker, oh, well, let me tell you who my favorite comedian is. And I'm like, let me guess, not John Garrett. And then they're like, yeah, you're right. And then they go on and on about Stuart and how amazing he is. And I'm like, enough. No, but just whoever their favorite is, and it's never me. And so, but if they sit down and they're like, so what do you do? And I go, I'm an accountant. They put on their noise canceling headphones. There's not even a follow-up question. There's nothing after that. It's just headphones, done. And so, even if they're an accountant, they're like, I don't want to talk about it. So there's other sides to who we are, and it's the human side to business, and it's bringing in some passion and some actual genuine interest in the people around us.
Did you find, like, of all the guests that you got, that they came more from one geographical place in the country than another? Was there one place where you found more people?
Not really. I've been fortunate to have people from Australia, people from the UK, some people from Europe, Canada, all over the US. I mean, for the most part, percentage wise, probably 70% of them are in the accounting consulting world. But then there's also, lawyers and bankers and engineers and, people like that as well. And not really one specific part of the country, simply because when I speak, it's people from all over. And so it's, hey, I'd love to have you on, and it's been cool people. Some people played minor league baseball for a couple of years before realizing, what, I'm probably not going to make it to the bigs. So let's just hang it up and get working. And then there's people that do a 5K walk for charity once a year. Sweet. Let's talk about it. A lady that makes kombucha for fun in her basement, or, a guy that has like a custom menswear where he designs suits and gets them made for his friends and coworkers, just kind of as a hobby. And, everything in between, stained glass or painting or playing the piano or watching horror movies or listening to podcasts or going to concerts. Like, people love to do these things. And who else does is your coworkers and then your clients. And, creating those connections over those things are so much stronger than talking about work. I mean, if this was an accounting radio show, like, good God, no one would listen. This would be terrible. Scott would be asleep. I wouldn't even know half the words Stuart was saying. Like,
I wouldn't fall asleep. I got to tell you, I get intrigued by it, especially when I have a good accountant that gives me a big tax refund and teaches me. But I also have a good accountant here, and Mr. Hack, who's taught me a lot about that thing called a jock tax. So.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
there
yeah.
You go.
No, hey, listen,
yeah.
Every time he brings up this jock tax thing, I really perk up. I don't need caffeine. I only need a jock tax.
Right? But if you have a good accountant, you don't need to know it like they do. So, so that's how it is.
I like to be educated. Come on, really.
Yeah, totally. All right. So let's talk FASBs. And
I found I had to speak once at a high school in front of parents, teachers, and students. And when I got there, I was right next to the person from Buffalo Wild Wings who was giving out samples. So I really needed to do something. And this was at the time when Bruce Jenner was becoming Caitlyn Jenner.
Okay.
So I started talking about the tax deductibility of a sex change operation. So now I have everybody's attention. If a doctor signs off and says you have a gender identity issue, the operation is a medical expense. However, if you want your breasts enhanced, that is considered cosmetic, so it wouldn't be deductible. But if you need it for a business, say you're a stripper or someone like that, you could write it off as a business expense because it grows your business.
Pun intended. I see what happened. I see what happened there.
I had all these people,
That's amazing.
They weren't their wings. They were coming for me, my little sticky pads samples.
Yeah.
You have to realize, if you want to make it interesting.
Yeah, and you want to be relatable.
Right.
You got to meet people where they're at. And people aren't at super high level, technical skills of whatever the job is. They're at their hobbies and passions. And especially people that are introverted, which a majority of the population is. Talking about your hobby or outside of work interest is a much easier conversation than talking about work. because you can't be wrong. And the other thing that I found from interviewing so many people and all the research that I did too is people are hesitant to call themselves a runner because they didn't qualify for the Boston Marathon, or their time isn't great, or I'm not a painter, no one's bought my painting, or, well, then it doesn't matter. Don't call yourself the label. Just say, I enjoy running. Then it doesn't matter what your time is. Or I enjoy painting. Do they suck? Who cares? I enjoy it. You're doing it for you. Stuart enjoys doing comedy. Is he on premium, like Comedy Central? Like, no, but it doesn't matter. He enjoys doing comedy. Like, that's all that matters, is something that you enjoy. And when you talk to people about those things, just notice how their energy changes in the tone of their voice, and their eyes light up and they're alive, and like there's color now, and especially in a corporate setting where everything's just so dull and gray, like just a little bit. And plus that's what's going to make you stand out. It's not your technical skills. When it comes to a client that's going to choose, somebody to do their taxes, everyone does them right and well. So I'm going to get the same return, 9 times out of 10 so no matter who I pick, but the personality and how we connect, that's what makes me want to choose someone, over
picking
another.
a spouse, when you think about it, not everyone is right for everyone else, but when you find the one, then that's who you go for. Exactly.
And it's, that's your differentiator. If you work for a large company, like I did with PricewaterhouseCoopers right out of school, and when you're in the bin of all the other new staff, well, you're not different than anybody else. And so, but you are as a person. And so, if I were to take someone's group, a department at their company, remove everybody, replace them with new people that have different skills or the same degree in technical skills, the work gets done the same. It's just a totally different department, different personality, different, unique skill sets that people can bring. And so it's just cool to see people come alive and just realize that there's more to who you are as a person and what you can bring to work, and more to the people around you. I mean, there's just amazing people.
Yeah, I agree. I got to tell you, one of my all-time favorite comedians was Red Fox, for sure. So,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I know he did a lot of comedy out in Vegas for a while. And, of course, watching Sanford and Son, that's certainly one of my all-time favorite. But, I love public speaking. That's something eventually I look to do it down the line when the situation presents itself, when the COVID is clear, not coast is clear. So I know how to come up with them, too.
Right.
I don't know if that'll ever be, but at least if we can get a fraction of that, so be it. But you're right. When you're on a microphone and the lights are on, that's when you just have that energy, and you just, John, take it to levels that you can't only imagine. You feel like every time you're on a broadcast or you're in front of someone, then it's like being shot out of a cannon is what it is with energy. I think one of my all-time favorite adrenaline rushes probably doesn't have to do with the microphone, but I think you'll get a kick out of this being from the Midwest, okay?
Yeah.
Is I was dating this bartender in Walled Lake, Michigan, and I remember when the lake froze so much that her and I and this other guy drove across the lake in a pickup truck, and this guy he was driving, I was on the other side.
Right.
My girlfriend's in the middle. We rolled down the window. We had snow hitting inside of there, and my goodness, you talk about an adrenaline rush. Holy Toledo.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, but that's
my wife gives me the name Crazy Man, so I can let it. Not really.
Yeah, you can't do that in Florida, that's for sure.
No, you definitely can't do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you could try, but you only get a little bit in, and then the Gators get you. Is that, I don't know.
I try to stay away from them, but that's for another day.
Yeah, no, but it's what lights people up, and like find that out. We work so we can live, and it's about time we all just admit that and harness that, and then you can bring some of that energy and bring that to the office, because you're able to talk about it, you're able to share it, people care. People ask Stuart, hey, how was your show last weekend? Or how was, I know you were running a race, how was that race? Or hey, I know you were working on a painting, I'd love to check it out. Just ask people, and don't judge, just, that's cool. We're not in 6th grade anymore where I'm going to get stuck in a locker, and we're cool. Like it's fun to be, unique and different, and provided everything's game until you interrupt someone else's ability to do their job. Right. That's when it becomes unprofessional. But up till then, you're getting your work done, they're getting their work done. Who cares? in talking about it, it only makes things better, deepens those relationships. And especially now that we're working remotely, I mean, you can't complain about the coffee anymore because we don't have the same coffee in the break room. So, what are you having conversations about? And, people are finding out that, that the relationships need to be deeper than what they thought.
Yeah, I've really embraced this whole change here. So I know we want to stay on point with the book. We got another 5 or 10 minutes to go in the broadcast. So, Stuart, anything else you want to ask John about the book or some of the key points that you want to make sure that everybody has a reason why they should invest into it?
What was it like trying to promote this book during a pandemic? Because obviously affecting that.
Yeah, no, I certainly was not. Well, part of it was, what was cool is that I knew that the message resonated with people before, but the more that the pandemic went on, the more I realized how much deeper this message really is and how much people needed it more than ever before. Before, people would pass each other in the hallway. How you doing? Fine. All right. And we thought we had a good relationship. Well, then all of a sudden you go remote and I don't know what to talk about with you, or, it's weird. And so that encouraged me. Usually there's, a book signing and there's conferences that I'm speaking at, and there's, just everybody gets books, and, it's really getting the message out there like that. And, Denver has this amazing, the Tattered Cover bookstore here, independent bookstore. That's awesome. And they do really cool things for local authors and, all of that stuff. And instead, it's not, and so what was awesome was just relying on, you have a launch team, and they were fantastic. I mean, just people from the podcast, people that have heard me speak, because I really believe this is like our message. Some people write a book, I climbed a mountain and here's how you can climb the mountain. Well, that's your individual story. Like this book is our message. Like it's Stuart's, it's all the people that are quoted in here. It's all the people that have been on the podcast. It's Scott's, it's all of ours, Right. And it's anyone that's thought, hey, am I supposed to have an outside of work hobby or passion? Or if I do, am I less professional or less dedicated to my career? And that's who this book's for. And so I think it just caught, at the right time, a movement. And, it's already well over 100 reviews on Amazon in a very short amount of time, which is pretty amazing. And I'm so thankful to everyone that's read it and left those reviews. It's been really cool to just see how it's impacted people. And so, it certainly isn't conventional, but it's also my first book, so I don't know any different. So, we were lucky enough. There's a guy that has a restaurant here in Denver. And so we had there were about 18 of us at a launch party of sorts, more like, closer friends that are here in Denver. That was, kind of fun to do. But I also, I very much deflect on, people like Stuart and people that have been on the podcast and people that this message is really for. It's really our message. And so that's how
title. And one of the things one of my goals down the road is to write a book. I am in a book in the Detroit Sports Broadcasters book in Michigan, where there's a page with myself, with Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Connors, but I still desire at some point down the road to be able to write on my own, so I can appreciate everything you're going through, which is why I'm glad you're on the broadcast tonight.
I appreciate you guys having me on, man. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Just so everybody knows, you're listening to the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Badmouth, along with John Garrett and Stuart Hack tonight. We're promoting John's book. Okay, what's your and? I really love the title. I enjoy the creativity of the book. And just when you come up with a name, you always want it to be as catchy as possible, but make sure that the meaning is wrapped within the title so that people can understand it. And the old kids theory, keep it simple, stupid. So
yeah.
And I think that when you come up with a name, whether it's through a podcast or whatnot, it doesn't matter. It's not what the title is, it's what you can actually gain out of it. And do you have this book also on audiobook, or is it just in?
Not yet on audio. It'll be on audio early part of next year, 2021. So it's right now it's on all the retail stores that are online. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Bookshop, Books A Million, all those kinds. And people listening overseas in Canada, Indigo, and the UK and Australia as well. And so it's all at what'syourand.com. The links there for the book. And and then also the podcast. So you can hear professionals that have an outside of work hobby or passion. And maybe it's you, maybe your passion sports or sports betting or whatever it is, playing sports. It's just cool to have people on that have an outside of work hobby or passion.
Have you trademarked anything that you're doing right now? I just actually was able to trademark the broadcasting side for Motor City Mad Mouth, and I do that for branding purposes. And I'm working on the public speaking and the writing side. That may take a while, but I got the broadcasting one, which is why I was able to trademark it. But, you have something good. I would assume that you definitely trademark it, don't you?
Yeah, What's Your And is trademarked. And then because it's also in a book, it's copyrighted, as well as all the models that are in the book, Culture Core and the Connections Pyramid and things like that I've created. So those are all copyrighted. And then What's Your And is trademarked. So, so it's cool. But, it's just cool to see how people are taking it and running with it. In their marketing or in their, monthly meetings or, things like that, of just how companies are implementing that. And that's the consulting piece that I do of, this is simple, but not easy. And so it's like people telling me I need to go to the gym, and I don't go and I don't know what to do when I walk in there. So, it's the same thing with this. You can read the book and you can implement things yourself, or that's where I come in with, some of the consulting to help you, because what are you going to actually do? I can watch a video on how to do lat pull downs or whatever, but am I going to do that? Probably not. So, if I had a trainer that was like, well, what do you want to do and what, type of thing and why you should do it, then that would be more impactful. So that's what's cool, is just making workplaces better and making people bring more of their expertise to the office.
I like to ask every guest, okay, is there anything that we've missed? Because if there is, now is the time to let it out there.
Is there going to be a second book?
Oh, wow. Writing one, this was 2 years. So Facebook, I'm not a huge fan of social media totally, but Facebook had a reminder. It was 2 years ago. So the book came out on September 15th. And so on September 21st, Facebook had a reminder that 2 years ago, my content editor and I were here in Denver for a week. We did a week, 40 hours in a conference room downtown Denver with flip chart paper all over the walls, mapping out the book. And so that's how long, if people are like, how long does it take to write a book? Yeah, that. And it's a journey. It's a journey. So, people say the second one's easier, but, let's see how this one does first. And, it's the fact I wrote a book is mind blowing to me. I didn't ever grow up wanting to write a book. I always thought people that wrote books were these uber geniuses that, people read about. And so for me to have a book and one that people are reading and liking and sharing means so much, because there are so many of these books that are, especially business books, that are so long and cumbersome to read. Right. And it's work. And I did not want to write that book, and I don't want to read that book. So this one is very conversational. It's micro chapters. If you're the biggest compliment I get is, I'm not a reader and I just read this cover to cover. Oh, it's 200 pages.
It was quick reading.
Reading. But there's enough meat there where you learn things and you think differently. And it's not where you finish it and go, what the hell was that? You actually finish it going, wow, I have so many ideas now of how I'm going to make, work better. But it's not in a way that's, I'm talking down to you, or it's not an educational. I'm not using big words that you wouldn't use in conversation. And so that's what I'm excited about, is that people are reading it, even non-readers, because I would consider myself almost a non-reader. And, I need to have that momentum going to finish. And so when I get that in a message or on an Amazon review, it just makes me so happy.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing it for 20, 30 years, never got around to it. But there will be a point now that I'm starting to get the urgency to really want to do it.
Well, if I did it, Scott, you can for sure, man. Come on.
Oh, yeah. No, hey, listen, now when I've heard your story, I feel I have a responsibility to have something in common with you other than sharing a great broadcast and writing book numero 1. Okay.
There you go, man. There you go.
Anything else you want to add before we close out the broadcast?
Well, no, I just so thankful to have you guys on me, have me on the show, and just everybody check out what'syouran.com. It's right there, the podcast, the book, and if you're read the book, please leave a review on Amazon. I can't tell you how much that matters to the life of a book. And if you have an outside of work hobby or passion, or someone you work with does, reach out. I'd love to have them on What's Your And podcast, because it's just super fun to share people's other interests.
Hey,
so
I'm
thank you so
always
much.
available to your podcast. All you have to do is let me know. I'd be more than happy to talk about anything you want if you want me on. Right?
There you go.
Doesn't matter, or you're welcome to come on here another time, somewhere time down the line.
That's awesome. Yeah. Once sports are happening more, and there's more than 60 games in a baseball season, and Stuart was joking earlier, the Cy Young Award winner gets 4 wins, and it's like crazy. It's just weird, but I'm just excited that college football is happening mostly, and that's where I was drawing the line. But since that's going,
looking at that gold helmet in the background, I have to look at it. So with that, Stuart, why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of you, and then I'll go over my particulars. And John, we're so delighted to have you on the Sports Exchange tonight. It's really been a privilege and a pleasure. I look forward to getting my hands on one of those books as well. So,
well, thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it.
So go ahead, Stuart.
All right. Well, I'm Stuart Hack, and this isn't what I do for a living. I am an accountant, Hack Tax and Accounting Services. It's in Wellington, Florida, Palm Beach County. You can find it on the web, www.hacktaxandaccounting.com. And if you go on the media section, you will see both podcasts that I did with John Garrett. So If you want to hear him interviewing me, just go on my website and you'll be able to catch that. You can reach me by phone also, 561-214-6171, or email Stuart@hacktaxandaccounting.com. Also run a networking group, the Friendly Business Networking Group. They meet via Zoom the first and third Tuesdays of every month at 12 p.m. Scott and John can show up from time to time. You never know what's going to happen, so catch them there. That's all I got.
Well, I'll be anxious to see what happens, John, when you interview me instead of me grilling you. It'll be imagine how that conversation's going to go.
Right?
But meanwhile, in terms of getting a hold of us, you can hear the audio version of this broadcast through Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'll repeat it again since everybody accuses me of talking too fast anyway. What would you expect? Being a Motor City guy who talks and moves quickly. But at any rate, you can once again get the audio version on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. In terms of social media, well, you can follow me on Twitter @Tribune South, Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. This broadcast will air on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. So we will share it on Facebook as well as the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. For those of you that want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and you'll get all the broadcasts that we have. So don't be shy, hit the subscribe button, and then you'll be able to get it all. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. We have all of our content there for our media distribution partners, as well as our columnists and the broadcasts are there as well. And if you want to email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com gets it done. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can contact me at Scott Morganroth. I'll be more than happy to connect with you. So any closing thoughts, John?
No, I just appreciate you having me on, and go Irish. So there's that. So,
well, hey, listen, the Golden Domer is a Golden Domer, and go US Bulls whenever
go Bulls, go Danes, right, Stuart?
Go Albany State, Great Danes.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I got to say this. When I had David Levin on a broadcast one time, he went to FSU. And Stuart, I think you were on that broadcast. I said, University of South Florida Bulls is the right thing for me because I am a Bull anyway. So David's getting a little nervous, and oh my God, I can only imagine about this thing here.
Well, being the Great Danes, they also called us the Scooby-Doos.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, David Levin. If voice inflections could tell the story with David Levin, okay, and then I'm a University of South Florida Bull, and with my bull-headed personality for being a perfectionist, David Levin, he took it lightheartedly. It was a lot of fun.
That's funny.
What can I tell you? It's all in the school spirit,
Oh, yeah.
So the Great Dane, the Raging Bull, or the Brahmin Bulls, and the Golden and the Fighting Irish, we all have a little fight in us tonight.
Pretty much. Well, thank you guys so much.
Well, with that said, on behalf of Stuart Hack, John Garrett, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, buddy.
See ya.